Hi there, Scott Wilder here, and welcome to the CLG Campus office hours / discussion. And today's topic is how to pick the right review sites and measure success. We have Joe Kevins and Dylan Carricker who will be speaking. Before we start, I'm going to share my screen and go through some just quick logistics. So here we go to the logistics screen. So today's event is brought to you by BASE and the CLG Campus. The goal is every Wednesday at high noon Pacific time and 3 p.m. East Coast time is to do an event. And of course, if you want to get involved in the CLG Campus, you can email me at wilder@base.ai. This event will be recorded, the slide deck and the recording will be added to the CLG Campus within 24 hours after I fix my roof. And today's agenda, basically, we'll go to do about a 40-minute presentation, 20 minutes Q&A. There'll be a quick survey afterwards. Also, and as a follow-up, I will link you to everything I said I'd link you to earlier. Joe also has a website that focuses on customer reviews. Dylan will let me know where he wants me to link people to as well. And with that, we can start. And once you guys introduce yourselves, Joe, why don't you kick it off?
Sure. Hey, everyone. Joe Kevins here. I'm the Director of Demand Generation at PartnerStack. It's a B2B SaaS company that helps fellow B2B SaaS companies manage their partner programs. And like Scott said, I've got a website called B2B SaaS Reviews that I started and write all about this topic. So I'm really happy to be here today. And Scott also brought me into the CLG campus to help the community with all things review. So yeah, that's a bit about me. You, Dylan?
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for having me today, Scott. My name is Dylan Carricker. I'm the Senior Customer Marketing Manager over at Onboard Meetings. Long story short, we handle everything inside board portals and board management softwares from the beginning to during the meeting to tasking subsequent committees. And I've been doing customer marketing now for a few years. I really delved into review sites by accident. So really looking forward to kicking this off.
Great. And with that, I'm going to pass the baton to Joe. So Joe, if you want to share your screen, and I will let more people in as we go, and I'll also field any questions or answers. So
sounds good. Is everyone with me? Software review sites, how to decide which review sites to prioritize?
Yep.
Cool. Okay. So here we see a sneak peek of some of the logos and some of the review sites you'll know, and we'll get into those. But before we get to the list, I think up front, it's always important to think through your goals and objectives when it comes to these review sites. What are you looking to achieve? Because if you start there, then you could match that up to what the review sites can offer you to get the most out of them. Because each site quite similar, they also do have their differences, and it does differ based on your company size, your target audience, and your industry. So some questions to ask yourself. Is it really about leads? If it's about leads now, there are sites like Capterra, GetApp, Software Advice, where basically it's set up for a demand gen professional to go in there and bid as they would for Google search ad. But if you're looking for customer references, you might be looking more at a site like G2, where in the review process, they ask, would you be up for being a customer reference? And that builds your reference pool. If you're looking for voice of the customer content, making case studies, video testimonials, etc., you might look more to Trust Radius or PeerSpot, a site that focuses more on depth of content in the review. And then also, if you're looking more for what they call buyer intent data, which accounts are in buying mode, I call them like the hidden leads out there, you might want to go to the sites where they rank highly in search, which we can get into. So that might be more like G2. So I think there's also a big question here, like, where do your buyers go for reviews? My process are these kind of 5 points. The first and foremost, it's search Google as your buyer would. And I think why I think that's so important is the majority of the traffic to these sites does come from search. So I'll get into how to do that, but that's first and foremost. The other four kind of supplement that, where it's basically internally figuring out with your team, where do your buyers turn for these reviews? And also just asking your customers directly, where do you turn for reviews? So here's a few other ways you can layer that onto your Google search review. For B2B SaaS reviews, I've been interviewing customer marketers primarily, but basically B2B SaaS practitioners related to reviews for their take on review sites. Recently, I spoke to Andrew Sevilla, who's been at the customer marketing game for quite a while, and he synthesized it in this way. And his point of view for his audience, generally speaking, G2's got the traffic, Trust Radius has the content, and then Gartner Peer Insights has the Magic Quadrant, which starts to get into the weeds. But the main idea here is when it comes to these review sites, depends on your objectives. So this is one example of how someone's taken their objectives and matched them up to what the review sites can offer. So what can they offer? First, you do got to know what the main sites are. Based on my experience and research, these are the ones that I think come up time and time again. You'll see, I've tried to break them down to show their differences. There are a lot of similarities, but I think when it comes to the review sites, G2, it's the biggest in terms of number of reviews, focuses on all companies of all sizes. For demand gen people, they sell buyer intent data. All that search traffic that they get, they show you which accounts are looking. That can be quite valuable if they do get a lot of the traffic in your space. And the differentiators, this is purely my opinion, but I think trying to figure out like what could be one thing that's quite different about the site compared to the others. In my opinion, I think G2, it's the search dominance, because they have so many reviews and because quantity of reviews is important in search engine optimization. And that's where there's a lot of traffic comes from these sites. G2 kind of naturally rises to the top of a lot of searches. Next, there's Gartner Digital Markets. They have basically a trio of sites: Capterra, Software Advice, and GetApp. They've bought these sites and now they roll up into Gartner Digital Markets, but they do generally operate as separate sites. One thing that's important to note, if you get a review on any one of these, it applies across all three. So it's a 3-for-1 deal, but they do tend to focus a little bit more on smaller companies. They are different in that you basically can bid like you would with a Google search ad to rank highly in your category. So they rank in their categorical listings all of the companies that are bidding before they show any organic. So the organic listings, let's say if you generated 1,000 reviews on one of their sites, but someone has 10 reviews and they're bidding $2 a click, they're going to show ahead of you. So that's the pro and the con, I would say, of this site. You can kind of quickly jump ahead and get in the lead, and you can also easily measure it and generate leads from it. The flip side is if you put a lot of time and effort into the review front, you won't rise the category rankings like you would on the other sites. Gartner Peer Insights. This is one that Gartner, the analyst firm that many know, they are now using this site to feed their Magic Quadrant, which is a key report they put out in categories to map where the key players are in that space and give the analyst view of the pros and cons of each. Tends to be big with enterprise buyers. And essentially, if you've got a Magic Quadrant report in your space and speaking to customer marketers, they basically say Gartner Peer Insights becomes a lot higher priority if you've got a Magic Quadrant. Trust Radius, they focus on mid-market enterprise. And I think they really do focus on quality. So you can customize your questions that you would ask in the review process to tailor the narrative that you'd like to have with your value prop. And you could also get more of your customers speaking to things that you'd like them to speak to in a review of your solution. And then PeerSpot, it was formerly called IT Central Station. They focus on enterprise IT, and it's a bit more of a community focus where you can reach out to your peers who are reviewing the software, but they differentiate by really honing in on cybersecurity, DevOps, and IT. So if you find yourself in that space, then they're certainly one to consider. So with the main sites, like one thing to consider when it comes to their search prominence, it's part of that is how many reviews they have. So I tallied up the numbers, and you could see that G2 is in the lead. Gartner Digital Markets, when they combine the three sites, it's neck and neck. It's almost like you can think of almost like the US and the European Union here, where the European Union, by combining forces, has the same economic size as the US. Similar here with Gartner Digital Markets. And then Gartner Peer Insights, I think, is on the rise with its integration with the Magic Quadrant and Trust Radius. They put quality over quantity. So it's a little bit lower, but again, important to keep that in mind with the quality side. And then I put in Salesforce App Exchange because I think app marketplaces, more and more of them are starting to add reviews. And I think this is one trend I'm seeing and seeing firsthand as a practitioner as well, the importance of reviews in these marketplaces. And that leads to other places to consider. So on the B2B app marketplace side, think of the Salesforce App Exchange, HubSpot App Marketplace. For me right now at PartnerStack, we added a field to our form, how did you hear about us? Which is quite popular. It's an old idea, but it's being repopularized right now. We're actually hearing as many people say like they heard about us through the HubSpot App Marketplace as G2 right now. So again, this probably varies quite a bit by industry, but for us, for people that are in business software that are looking to run partner programs, we're finding that this is an important source. And in HubSpot App Marketplace, they do have reviews. You can rise the ranks in listing if you do get more. Next, industry, niche, and regional review sites. So these are ones to consider, not really to compete, quote unquote, with the main sites, certainly not the industry niche sites. But for us, at least with a demand gen lens, if you're looking at search and you're looking at where your buyers are going for review, I've also seen more industry niche sites pop up in search, where the good news is you don't necessarily have to collect more reviews on there, but usually it is a bit more like the Capterra pay to play side. So if you are looking for leads, looking for demand gen opportunities, there will be some opportunities here with the niche sites. And again, if you're looking for review sites and demand from search, you might want to just keep them in mind when you're searching. Another one I came across pretty recently was called OMR Reviews. They're basically creating a localized review site for the DACH region of Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. They're finding that in that market, local buyers want to hear from their local peers how they're using software, and they're providing the reviews in German. If you're looking to break into regions like that, certainly something to consider. And then last, not all of us are in B2B software. So for example, if you're in B2B services, Clutch is one of the main sites, if not the main site for reviews. G2 is getting more and more into the service front, but still Clutch is up there on the services side. B2C, I think Trustpilot would definitely be one to consider if you've got more of a B2C style company. Massive player. To put the reviews into perspective, G2 just eclipsed 2 million reviews. Trustpilot has 180 million. So massive They do everything from mom and pop shops to you name it in the B2C space. So that's one where you can get a lot of reviews quickly, much lower bar. They don't have any sort of quality control process. It's pretty much ungated. They post the review immediately. So for better and for worse, that's how they do it. And then lastly, there's a site called Software Reviews. Small site, but if you do target government, it's one to consider, because what they do is they have reviews plus they basically have a 5-week consulting engagement where they help you take that review data, but also work with you in the whole buying process through forming your consideration set, narrowing it down all the way through to like negotiating and actually buying the software. So they tend to get a lot of government clients because they're looking for risk mitigation, and they're building up the review side of the business. So anyway, there's tons of sites you could look at as well as the big ones. Part of it is how you go about looking.
Hey, Joe.
So, yes.
Great insight there on the HubSpot stuff. Curious, can you just give me 1 or 2 examples of the B2B services Clutch site? What are some of the services that it does review?
Yeah, so if you were like, say you were a digital marketing agency, that would be a perfect fit there. Basically, you don't have a product that you're offering, but if you have a service, you're offering your people and their time. Legal firms, things like that. So more on like the services side there. Those are the types of companies that would generate reviews on Clutch.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, moving along. So how do you choose the site? I recommend starting with Google. Again, a lot of these review sites, they get tons of their traffic through search. And if you look at where the click traffic comes from in a Google search result page, you'll see it's disproportionately high at the top end. What I recommend is just putting your category name. So for Partner Stack, it's partner management software, and basically seeing what comes up. And you'll probably find in your space a review site or 2 or more will show up on that first page, and you can prioritize accordingly. So real example here, this is what it looks like for Partner Stack. If you put in partner management software, the first 4 organic search results are all review sites. And we've more or less prioritized accordingly. G2 is the top in our space. So G2, we've got 531 reviews. Capterra second, we've got 87. Gartner Peer Insights is actually on the rise. They weren't on the first page until recently. So they're building up their presence in the space. So that's why we're at 0, but we just got ourselves a profile and we're going to start building it up. And then Trust Radius, we're at 26. And then if you were to look at our kind of demand gen side, it matches this as well. We get the most leads and demand from G2, and then Capterra, and then Trust Radius. I think another thing to consider is how you approach these sites. I think there's 2 schools of thought here, like if you go all in on one site or if you diversify across multiple sites. So on the all-in approach, I spoke to Anna at Reach Desk about this. They went all in on G2. They were a small team and they prioritized one site, focusing on it, and in her words, properly growing our presence on one review site rather than half ours, a handful. And for them, they've been on G2's fastest growing products top 100 list for 3 years in a row. And then they promote that quite heavily. They found Allison at PeerSpot. She talks about diversifying the review strategy and aligning it with your goals to see what these platforms can provide. And she is with a review site, but I would echo this thought that there is merit to thinking through going beyond just one site. So I think sorry, this slide. The questions to ask, I think, on all in or diversify are these. So what's the value of adding another X number of reviews. Sorry, not more leads, more reviews on your priority site versus that second or third. So for us at Partner Stack, let's say, is it better for us to go from 530 reviews to 540, or is it better to go from 0 to 10 on Gartner Peer Insights? I'd argue the latter, because then we can get into the top 5 rankings on Gartner Peer Insights, whereas an extra 10 on G2 at this point, not going to do a whole lot for us. Another is like the review site milestones. Most sites require a certain number of reviews before you can get a social proof badge. There's also some findings that show that until you get about 10 reviews on a profile, the conversion rates are quite low. So you might want to see what kind of milestone or threshold you might need to hit with a review site to get in the mix. And then also just think, if you've already got people to review you on one site, would they review you again elsewhere? And I think you could actually go back to folks more than you might think. I think for us, Partner Stack, over 500 reviews on G2. I think much of the 87 we got on Capterra for people that first did it on G2. So I think it becomes a question of timing, messaging, and incentivizing there. So Scott's asking if there's any questions. I guess as people are thinking about it, my last slide here, this kind of sums up, if you're trying to match your goals and objectives to the review sites, this is my kind of attempt at matching them up. So you can think through these questions and see which kind of matches up to review sites. And again, keep in mind your industry, your space, your customer audience, and that'll help align you best to the review sites that are out there.
Great.
I'll keep this up for now. That's the last slide for me. Any questions?
One question's here. Do you know the cost differences between the sites?
Yes. So they each offer different solutions. So for example, if we talk Gartner Digital Markets, Capterra, GetApp Software Advice, they do a Google style like cost per click bidding auction. I think the bids, they might have bumped them up. They were $2 per click as a minimum. And you basically set a monthly budget and you could change your bid at any point in time. And it's more or less pay as you go, let's say. You could stop it at any time. A lot of the other sites tend to be more subscription based. So it's more an annual contract. If you're getting something like buyer intent data on any of these sites, it's for the year. It depends a bit on the category, but in my experience, you're looking more at 5 figures, like it might be 20,000, whether you do it through G2 or Trust Radius. Even Gartner Digital Markets now has buyer intent, I think starting at about 10K. So it does vary, I find, but I think aside from the PPC, I'd say you're looking in the 5 figures for one of their solutions.
Great. Any other questions before we move to Dylan? Okay, so why don't we continue moving? Dylan, you can take
Cool.
over as presenter.
Got it. See my screen?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. All right, great. I think Joe made actually a really good point about deciding where to put your hard-earned dollars. And like you said, every single one of them does have some form of cost, and while most are free to set up profiles, like Joe said, having that strategy in place to really know what review site you're going to go to for your specific business is paramount. So once you figure that out, you're going to want to choose your channels. How are we going to activate these review campaigns in order to get people to give you reviews? So every single channel that you have here, you got to look at this as a whole opportunity to really engage with customers in order to get a review. So looking at the entire customer journey from implementation all the way down to partners and to the end of the customer life cycle where they become a customer, they're implemented, and now they're becoming an advocate for you. Some just tactical ideas that I had when I started my review site journey. So I started back in mid 2019, and my head of demand gen basically said, hey, I want 1,000 reviews by the end of 2021. And that is now most of your job. And so big deer in the headlights moment. I've got no idea what I'm doing. So trying to find what works for my company was a lot of trial and error. My company is a B2B company. Like I said, we provide board portals. We did a lot of different tactics in order to try to get to where we're going, and did finalize on a few. But some things that we did try, looking at, like I said, looking at the customer journey during the implementation survey. Once you onboard a customer, they're pretty happy. So you're going to want to hit these folks when they are at that opportunity where they're going to give you a good review. Even customers that just go through a trial, they maybe don't purchase, but they really are like, hey, this is a great solution. I would love to have bought this solution, but I can't because of budgetary reasons. You can offer that to them as well. One other thing that we still do, we do in-app product pop-ups via Pendo. You could also do this with an intercom solution or something like that. If you do have an app, a web app, an app on mobile devices. We did do stuff at no cards at events, where this is another tactic that we are continuing to do now that we have a lot of customers in like the higher education space, not-for-profit customers, things like that. When we go to these events, we want to be able to hit them up and say, hey, here's a note card with a quick QR code in order to review us. And that seems to work out and do wonders for us. And then also just attaching it to like invoices, support tickets, peak happiness. Once again, people are super happy after you fix their issues. We do email banners as well. Our main tactic is with targeted email pushes, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But if you're wanting to do a one-to-many approach, you can do that in a customer newsletter, or you can just straight up ask your partners, friends, family, people who do use your services. Like our final tactics, really getting the right channel does mean the difference between a successful or failed review campaign, straight up, period. So we did a lot of email banners through OpenSense 6. It is domain specific. It is targeted, so it's not one-to-many. It's very specific in who I do want to target. You can do an integration through Marketo, or they do have targeting ABM systems within their software already. And then we do a lot of targeted emails, and these seem to actually work very well. So it's specifically targeted to exactly who I want, and I can really segment that any way I want to slice and dice that. And then we make a carefully crafted message, and then we make sure that they're CSM approved contacts. So these two tactics are really working for us. Like I said, now that we have additional bandwidth, we're doing the in-app pop-ups and also the trade shows, but these are our bread and butter for that. If you really want to do incentivized reviews, you can. Some review sites do bake that into your contract, like G2. They'll give you like $500, and then each review costs like $25 in order to do that. It's a double-edged sword, right? It makes a big impression, and people are more likely to help you in the future, but it is an incentivized review. It's going to cost you money. Statistically speaking, we found that they are more likely to rate us higher if we do pay them. But however, if you're not able to do an incentivized reviews, you don't have the budget for that's okay. That's not a problem. We did find that if you just ask, maybe as the CSM, and maybe as like a small favor, hey, can you do me a favor and do a review? That's perfectly fine. That does work as well. You do not have to pay people, but if you are able to, it does help you out in the long run. But also keep in mind that some people can't get incentivized for their reviews, such as like public schools, higher education institutions like that, government bodies, they cannot get incentivized for reviews. So that means you're going to have to get creative and either not incentivize them, or you're going to have to offer them like a choice through like Sudoso or something like that, where you do offer them the ability to do something through like Charity Choice or the Charity Choice Network, so that they can donate to a charity of their choice. And that's an option that we do offer for schools and government when we do send them those targeted emails. And speaking of, this is our example of a sample email from a CSM, and I've highlighted some parts in it that I think are actually really important that I want to make sure that you have in there when you are making your review asks. The main thing is just, hey, thanks for being here. We really appreciate you're a customer. You want to go ahead and open it up like that. Then you want to tell them, how long is this going to take? Is this going to take me forever to do this? You're going to tell them it takes you 5 to 7 minutes. You're going to tell them exactly how long it takes, because trust me, people will come back and they will say things like, this took me 10 minutes, or I had to log in, blah, blah, blah. You want to make sure that everybody knows how long this is going to really take them. You want to explain what it is. G2 is a provider of business software reviews where people can share feedback, point blank period. That's what it is. That way people can understand where they're going to, because you're telling them to go off site, right? You're telling them to go off res and to go to a totally different site to do something for you. So you want to explain what that is. And then you got the with them, right? The what's in it for me. $30 Amazon gift card. You can omit that. Like I said, it's up to you. We tend to do Amazon gift card pushes around things like Amazon Prime Day, holidays such as Mother and Father's Day, Christmas, Black Cyber Monday. We do gift card pushes then, and about a month prior, and we will actually put that into there and say $30 Amazon gift card for Prime Day, things like that. We'll put that in there. And then you want to make that CTA, right? There it is. Boom. It's right in front of them. Click here to start that review, get that going. But then you also want to say about why it's important. So your feedback is important to Onboard's features. We are able to continually improve and help make Onboard better and easier to use and as innovative as possible. So having all of that in there is my recipe for success for a great email. But coming from the CSM, that is my main suggestion, because they know them. Don't just throw it out from anybody. And if you are going to segment this, you can segment these things in multiple fashions. You can go by like Net Promoter Score, CSM communication frequency, software usage frequency, high feature usage. Do they use your product a lot? And then you do want to decide who that's going to be from, on if it's like the CSM, somebody else, what review site you want to do it. And then Joe did mention something about the likelihood of people coming back and doing second reviews. We call them super promoters. And we actually have a field in Salesforce that is for super promoters. And I can basically click on that and then ask people to do additional reviews for us on other online review sites like SourceForge or Peer Insight or Trust Radius, things like that. Okay. Looking at it, quantity versus quality, where are we going to go in this? What are we going to do? How many reviews do I really want? My boss told me 1,000, and then we found out that's not necessarily the best idea in the world. So if you're going to go for quantity, it's a super big number. You're going to look great on there. However, you're going to get an average of lower scores. The more people you push out there, the higher chance it is that those scores are going to lower. And then it's going to be a lower online review site score as well, like the G2 score. It's going to be lower. You're going to get a less amount of badges too. Whereas on the other side, if you go strictly for quality, you're going to get specific badges like best implementation, best admin experience, things like that. You're going to get a super high score, which is great. However, this looks fake. People don't want fake reviews. So if you look at something that's got all 5-star reviews, it's got 1,000 reviews, they're all 5 stars. That's not real. That's not authentic. Like I said, it looks purposely inflated. And so then that will then affect the review site score as well. That looks inflated. So you're going to want to go for that happy medium right in there, right? It doesn't look fake, doesn't look inflated. You've got a high number of reviews overall, but you're scoring like these really great badges that says best implementation, You're not getting fastest implementation. You're not getting best ROI. You're getting the best overall. You're getting these best of badges that you can throw everywhere and say, hey, we're the best in class. These best in class badges, in my opinion, are better than the little tiny little badges like fastest implementation. Okay, cool. So your solution took 3 weeks long, 3 weeks shorter than my solution. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for best in class. And then this happy medium is easy to maintain going forward. The quality and the quantity is hard to maintain. Once you hit all your customers, you hit the most happy customers, it's going to be hard. So once you hit everybody, what are you going to do next? This is a consistent way to source reviews and to get a score that looks authentic. And some review sites will actually, in a way, punish you for having inflated reviews as well. So just something to think about. Whichever way you want to go is perfectly fine. My suggestion is that happy medium. So good news, reviews are flowing in. This is great. What are we going to do now? How am I going to report back on this success? How am I going to report back to my management that their return on marketing investment is working? What are we going to do now? And I'm here to tell you that UTM tags are incredible. UTM tags are basically telling me everything I need to know. UTM tags then directly feed into my Google Analytics. They feed into my Salesforce. They feed into Marketo. And they tell me everything that I need to know about how I'm doing. If you don't UTM tag, that's perfectly fine, but do something to try to report back in a way that you can be easily understood to make sure really what's working and what's not working, more importantly. Some type of reports that might work for you are a quarterly badge tracker. How are we doing? Are we still getting that best implementation overall? Are we getting best in class? Quarter by quarter, these guys are going to pop out reviews and badges for you. You're going to want to track those. Your lead flow changes. Lead flow changes are going to change. Obviously, that everything is seasonal, but lead flow changes that come from review sites, you're going to want to track those. And the best way that we do track those is via those UTM tags. So tracking those leads out of the review sites tells you you're doing the right thing. And then coupled with that, you're going to look at your score changes. And I'm talking your online review site score changes, like the G2 score. You're going to track that quarter over quarter. You're going to track that year over year. You're also then going to go look at your ARR, your annual recurring revenue increase, quarter over quarter and year over year from those review sites. This all goes back to UTM or tag reporting, right? So tracking that, plopping that back in, gives you your ARR increase or decrease quarter over quarter, year over year. And then that one hand give you your return on marketing increase or decrease quarter over quarter, year over year. That will then help you with your close rate, right? So close rate, you're going to have all these great reviews. What do we do with them? We're going to throw the badges everywhere. We're going to do testimonials, case studies. We're going to do it all. And that will increase your sales close rate. And then also your market presence score, the scores that are on those quadrants, that magic quadrant, that G2 quadrant. That's going to boost that as well. And it's going to put you in that upper right-hand corner where you want to be, where all your competition's down here. If you keep getting reviews, you're going to see all this kind of take place. You're going to see it all happen for you. It's going to take a while, but you will eventually get there. So once you get there, right, you're going to be able to create a nice, cool looking slide like this for your sales team. Look at this. I've got every single badge under the sun. I'm in the upper right-hand corner from G2. I've got different badges. I've got badges from everywhere. I don't just have badges from G2. I've got badges from G2, featured customers, software advice, Capterra, software suggest, and software world. I got them from all over. Must be doing something right. Onboard must be doing something right. They must be the solution for me. I'm going to buy Onboard. So that's what we do. Now that everything comes full circle, here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a nice slide for our sales stream. That's going to help that close rate boost. That's going to help that ARR increase. And you can attribute that directly back to you as a marketer. I hope that helps. Joe, I think you had one more slide in here, right? And there are some probably questions. List of tactics is A+. Thanks, Joe.
That was great. Did I have another slide? I can't
Yeah,
recall.
man, you have your link to your site. I don't know if I've got that in mind, bud. I think I
Oh,
actually
yes.
do. Oh, right on. I got
Okay.
you. I'll just
Nice.
change slides for you.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I've written quite a bit on this, gone quite deep and thorough on the subject. 10 specific sites here I've gone quite deep on. I'm going to do a series, one on each, coming soon. So if you're looking for more info, this is a good spot. But while we're here, happy to answer any more questions anyone might have.
Yeah, this is a fantastic site. So I went here earlier and I saw a lot of, it was just validation, right? We're doing things right, but it also told me what each review site is used for, when were they founded, things like that. That's where they serve, what they're there for. I really appreciated this, Joe. This was a great spot, a great post. I appreciated it.
Oh, thanks, Dylan. Yeah, your tactics, like you hit all the main notes. I've interviewed like 15 people now, and I think generally it's like maybe they're doing 3 or 4 of those, but the fact that you're doing all 8, it's definitely like an A grade example. So anyone listening, like you've got quite the playbook here with what Dylan's presented.
Yeah, we went all over the place, but any of this can be right or not right for your specific use case. As Joe has pointed out, you've got to find the right thing that's right for you. When it comes to a tactical point of view and a review site point of view, you've got to do it right. Make sure you're in the right spots. Got a question from Angela. If you cast your net wide asking for reviews, newsletters, are you not opening yourself to negative reviews? Yes, that kind of goes back to my slide on quantity versus quality. Yes, if you cast your net wide, you are going to get more negative reviews. That's 100% true. Joe, you want to throw that in there?
Yeah, just to add to that, no, I agree. I think it's you do open yourself up to that. I think what we see quite a lot of in the space is not asking everybody, but some level of targeting in terms of who you ask. Sometimes it's also milestone driven. So if they just finished onboarding and they gave you a score, whether you CSAT or whatever method, typically then that's a review ask. Or if you do NPS, that's another way to figure out who to ask. It can be a bit of a delicate balance. I think the way Dylan presented it's quite smart to show it more on a spectrum to think through it. And I think there is a divide here, candidly, between what the review sites will want you to do and then what people actually do. I think the review sites obviously want you to ask everyone, make it as open and objective as possible. There are rankings, and this is very competitive, and people will try to do what they can to also optimize and therefore target more people that they think will provide the positive review.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. And I think, Joe, you hit the nail on the head when you said something about NPS review scores and things like that. If you do want, my suggestion would be from a tactical point of view and a tactical standpoint is to break out that newsletter into 2 separate ones. So I've got my blog that just released, my white paper, and then I've got a testimonial. Cool. That's customer newsletter number 1. Customer newsletter number 2 is going to have all that in there, except it's going to input the review ask. But that's for customers that have a great NPS score, people that are promoters, 8s and above, 7, 8, and 9 and 10s. So you want to separate those folks out and create a separate newsletter maybe for them when you do these review asks. That way you're casting that wide net, but you're casting it to the better fish.
Yeah, I was just going to say, these guys are the experts, but when I've done this in the past is you cast the net wide for the survey, the net NPS survey, and then the ask will be on the 7, 8s, and 9s in terms of net promoter score.
Yeah.
I had a question for you guys about the G2 grid and other grids and how you guys think about that. Like when I work with senior management, they always want to see the grid. And so they'll look at the G2 grid. There's other, Gartner has a grid. So I don't know if you guys have any perspective on like how you position that.
For me, I think in my experience, having done this now at a few companies, you're right. That's usually what the highest ranking people want from this. And with that, I just find it starts with going to the methodology and trying to understand it as best you can. How do they actually go about doing it? And plotting companies on the grid. So with G2, they've got their two main axes on user satisfaction and then market presence. So satisfaction is a bit easier to understand. It's really like the quality of the reviews you're getting. So basically, the higher the ratings you get, the better the satisfaction will be. And then market presence is a combination. They actually do take into account quantity of reviews, but they also take into account a number of things like how many social followers you have, your web traffic, other indicators of how big you are in the market. And my understanding is why they do that is so that buyers have an indication of the companies at the top right are the most well-established, not going anywhere type companies. And at the very top right, very well-established in the market, plus they've got very satisfied users. If you're top left, then that could be more very well-established, but not so happy users. Bottom right, very happy users, but not so established in the market. So you kind of have to understand where you are on the grid and how to get up there. At my previous to prior partner stack, I was at a company called Level Jump, which was like a true startup, a dozen people, and we were bottom to mid right. So very high user satisfaction, but the market presence score wasn't quite. So understanding what you could do about it helped, because we could do what we could to get up there, but then also understanding what's outside of your control. So there was just an understanding that if we're a 12-person company and we're trying to compete with a 1,200-person company, we just can't get the same market presence that they can. Even just number of employees is one of the criteria in the G2 grid. So I think at least that way you can have the conversation with them about what is and what isn't possible, and you can understand the method to the madness and what you can and cannot do with these things.
One more question is, so you got all this information from all these different review sites. Dylan and Joe, you're probably like one person working on this. Like, how do you keep it all straight? Is all this information in Salesforce? Are you using Google Sheets? Are you something else?
Yeah. We have a big master tracker that tracks everything on G2, all of our scores. G2 does a great job in that they bring out all these scores for you on a quarterly basis so that you know exactly where you are. And so we have trackers. You can also use as insights. I forget what it's called, but yeah, Gartner has a insights. I think it's 7,000 a year, and they tell you how you stack up against other people in terms of scoring as well. Yeah, it's a full tracker on a quarterly basis every single time, and every time that comes out, you just pop them in. So once you build it out, it's pretty clockwork. But yeah, having that, it tells us a lot, right? It's going to tell us what we need to focus on for that next quarter. What type of reviews do we need to focus on? What does product maybe need to focus on? So there's a lot of insights that come out of that.
Got it.
Just to add to that, I think of it as there's two ways to manage it. There's the demand gen side, and then there's like the review management side. So on the demand gen side, with the big two for us on that front right now are G2 and then the Gartner digital markets. So Capterra, GetApp, Software Advice. With Gartner digital markets, it's like you're running Google search ads, where it's basically like, how much do we spend that month versus how many leads do we get, and then tracking that through to pipeline and revenue. With G2, because we subscribe for their buyer intent data, we do have that in Salesforce as well, but I'd say going above and beyond right now to work with you, if you work with your CSM, to actually run those analyses for you and show you the ROI there. So that's helped. On the review management side, I think one thing that's helped is try to find a way to get it from the review platform to where people can see it. So what we've done is through Zapier and through HubSpot, we've found a way to kind of get it into Slack channels where people can see it. I've heard others get it into product boards so product teams can see it. Right now, there isn't really like I'd say like a fully fledged solution or a software solution to do this. A lot of it's manual or stitching it together. There is one up and comer called Review Flows with a Z. I've been speaking with their founder, and what he's building is something to help with that, where basically you would take all of the places you get reviews, so say G2, Capterra, HubSpot app marketplace, etc. And quite simply what it would do is just funnel that into one place where you see all of your reviews and different sources and how it's trending and things like that. I think it's exciting to see a solution come up like that to try to make sense of the madness, because anytime you hear don't say like spreadsheets, like we're all in the naturally spreadsheet hell, anything to take you out of that's usually a step in the right direction.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. I was like, oh, damn, there's a great product idea, but looks like
Yeah.
Review Flows is already working on it.
Yeah.
One last question. So you mentioned super promoters, I think, Dylan, right, that you're tracking Salesforce. Are you tying that to either an advocacy program or are you tying it to a community champion program? If you think about your ecosystem and all your net promoters, I'm just curious how those super promoters, is it mainly just for reviews or are you thinking beyond that?
Yeah, we do think beyond that. So it was initially review driven. So getting reviews on other review sites and the smaller tier 2, tier 3 ones. But then once we finished that, then we realized that, oh, we could maybe use this for other reasons. Like you said, advocacy stuff like testimonials, case studies, things like that, customer advisory boards. So there's a lot of applications that people who really love your solution could add to your business.
Got it. Great. I don't know if we have any more questions, but this has been like, I've been taking a lot of notes here. So this has been really helpful. I'm going to just put one quick slide up here, but I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. And too many things on my screen here. There we go. You can see Joe's information there again. And again, there's a short survey. I put the link in the chat. Every Wednesday at high noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. East Coast time, we try and have these office hours. So if there's a topic that you're interested in, let me know. You can send an email to wilder@base.ai. And Joe, Dylan, every time I talk to you guys, fill up a lot of pages of notes. So thank you very much for your time today. Thank you, everybody. And you get 4 minutes back to grab lunch or grab tea and get to your next meeting. Thank you.